Now let us move on to the different kind of the market structure, the second kind of market structure, which is monopoly. So we have seen what perfect competition look like. Now let's look at what monopoly is. In monopoly, there is a single seller, and that is serving the entire market. In perfect competition, there were many sellers, right? So for example, a rickshawala market, in case of perfect competition, there were many rickshawalas there, right? And all of them were selling the same kind of good. In monopoly, there's a single firm that is selling this, that will be selling a product and that will be serving the entire market, right? So when, just imagine one rickshawala. So he is going to face a very small part of the market demand, right? While in case of monopoly, he's going to face the entire market demand. That's the point. So it faces the market demand curve. For its output, right? Now, when, guys, I hope you remember this. I'm saying the monopolist is going to face this demand curve, right? This is for the monopoly. In case of perfectly competitive firm, the firm has this kind of the market demand curve. It can supply whatever amount of output it wants to supply at that price. Perfectly competitive firm. Perfectly competitive firm, right? It is facing just a part of the market demand, a perfectly competitive firm. In case of an industry, perfectly competitive industry, so industry is facing the downward demand curve. Industry, the complete rickshawala industry will be facing the downward sloping demand curve, but a particular firm can only be selling at a particular price, right? At a given price. So that's the point which I want to make. And the other thing is, when the monopolist is facing this entire market demand curve, so you can call this as a monopolist demand curve or a market demand curve or industry demand curve or the firm's demand curve, it doesn't matter, because there is, apart from this one firm, there is no other firm in the industry, right? Okay. Monopolist can decide on, supposedly if monopolist says that I want to charge this price, I want to charge. So monopolist can find out that what is going to be its demand. It can decide on, by deciding on what price it wants to charge, it can decide on what is going to be the quantity, right? Or it can also do the other thing. It can decide on, I'm going to produce this much quantity. Then according to this function, I can find out what is going to be my price. You with me? Huh? So monopolist can decide on that I want to produce this Q dash quantity, and for this I'm going to charge P dash price. And this, because this Q dash, it will take it to its demand curve, and from there it can get P dash. The point which I want to make is, monopolist has a choice. It can choose the output level and find the price, or it can choose the price level and find the output. In case of perfect competition, you didn't have a choice. I mean, price was given to you. You can only decide on how much of output you want to produce, right? So please write this. Please write this. Monopoly can make a decision right, on how much to produce. On how much to produce, right? Unlike a perfectly competitive firm which has no control over the market price, monopolist has a control. So monopolist can decide on the price and then can find out the quantity, or can decide on the quantity and find out the price, right? So monopolist output decision output decision will in fact determine the goods price. The goods price, right? So monopolies, they have the power to even set the prices, right? This power perfectly competitive firm didn't have. Mind you, this power perfectly competitive firm didn't have. So monopolists can choose either quantity or price, but not both. Of course, I mean, it can choose the quantity, and according to the market demand, it can find out the price, or it can choose the price, and according to the market demand, it can find out the quantity, but not both, right? So it can't say, I will be selling this quantity. The moment you decide on that this quantity you want to sell, then from the demand curve, you can find out what is going to be the price, right? You can't say, I'll be selling this quantity at this price. Mhm. So this is what has been written. It may choose either market price or quantity, but not both, but not both, right? Okay. Now, there are certain barriers to entry. So that only makes a monopoly. That is, they can be technical barriers or they can be legal barriers. So there are two kinds of barriers which we're going to look at, right? So the reason why a monopolist is going to exist or a monopoly firm is going to exist is because there are barriers to entry. You take up a rickshawala market. In case of perfect competition, anybody could become a rickshawala. I mean, you just have to buy it and just be willing to do that, right? There are no barriers to entry. Tomorrow you want to open a website, do that. I mean, anybody could do that. But the point is that how far you can survive on maintaining that website. That's the point. Uh, so it's not about opening a new business sometimes. It's also about how do you maintain it over the period of time. So that requires patience. But what monopolist does is he also tries to create a barriers to entry. So there could be a technical barrier to entry or a legal barrier, right? And because there are barriers to entry, no other new firm can enter the market. And because they cannot enter the market, so there is only one firm which can survive. That is yours. That's there. So barriers to entry. Barriers to entry, right? Because the other firms find it unprofitable or impossible to enter the market, right? So monopoly exists because other firms find it unprofitable or impossible to enter the market, right? So the barriers to entry is what they are saying is the entire source of the monopoly power. So they create this, they create certain barriers to entry, right? So we'll talk about two kinds of barriers to entry. One is the technical barriers to entry. Another is legal barriers to entry. Technical barriers to entry. So let us talk about them. So one of the technical barriers to entry could be that the product which is being produced has a declining marginal cost, the average cost over a wide range of output, right? So your firm is able to produce at a very, very low cost for a very large level of output. Now, that is one very, very important thing. So for example, if you are established in a business and you're producing a very large level of output at a very low cost, then it is going to be very, very difficult for the other firm, because I mean, if you're going to charge, if your cost is low, you might even charge low. I mean, or you can decrease the price in case if you if you are threatened by the entry in any way. So the other firms would not find it profitable to enter your market. That's an idea. So the production of the good may exhibit decreasing MC or decreasing AC over wide range of output, right? Over wide range of output. Right? And this is one of the situation which is called natural monopoly. We'll be doing this later on in the course. And what can happen is that supposedly if any firm wants to get into your industry or gets into the production of your product, because you know the cost and the costs are very low to you, you can decrease the price. Now when the price is going to be very, very low, people would find it very, very unprofitable to enter your market that way, right? So that is and the other thing is that the new firm, when he or she is going to come, when this, sorry, when the firm is going to come, the new firm is going to come, it can produce the low level of output at a very high average cost, because you have been able to get the decreasing average cost. I mean, for when you have started producing at a very, very high range of output, at a very, very high level of output. But suddenly when the new firm will start, it won't be able to produce such a high level of output and its costs are going to be higher. And when the costs are going to be higher, it cannot reduce the price, but you can. So you can drive the potential entrant out of the market. That's one thing, right? The other reason could be a special knowledge special knowledge of a low cost production technique. Low cost production technique. So this is the another thing. I mean, low cost production technique, and you know it. I mean, you have the knowledge what kind of production technique is costing you very, very low. So you'll be using that technique, and the other people are not able to know this. And this can happen only if you have a patent to such a technique. But again, that is also timed. You cannot have a technology patent which is going to be forever. You cannot have that. So that's there. The other reason could be, I mean, technical barriers to entry could be, I mean, supposedly you have the ownership of the unique resources. Ownership of unique resources, right? For example, you have the ownership of the mineral deposits or land locations or whatever. I mean, so this can also help the monopoly to maintain its position for a large amount of time. Then you have the other could be legal barriers to entry. Legal barriers to entry, right? So sometimes the monopolies, they are created by law also. How a patent is given to you, right? For example, there is certain kind of a drug, so only you can make, right? In case of a pandemic, there are these vaccine companies, pharmaceutical companies who develop the vaccine. Only they are given a patent. So they will have a monopoly for a certain amount of time. So it is going to create a barrier for the other pharmaceutical firms to enter and create a vaccine or with that formula, right? So this is, and what is the defense which is given for granting a patent? Because in case of the government says that we give patent because it is going to what do you call it is going to increase creativity, it is going to increase innovation. Because if we do not make it profitable for innovators, they will never innovate, they will never create. So that is the reasoning which has been given to them. So there are a lot of resources which go on in developing a certain product. So why can't we give them a certain shield, right, for a certain amount of time so that other firms cannot enter? So that's the reasoning which is given with that. That's true or not, that's always questionable, but that's there. So monopolies are sometimes created by law, right? So government granted monopoly position. Government granted monopoly position sometimes, right? For example, patent or copyright, right? So and why do they give them? What is the defense? Or because the moment they give a patent, so the other firms, they cannot enter the market and create the same product. So it's like government is helping the firm to become like a monopoly. Now what is the defense the government is going to take for that? Government says this: we are trying to make the innovation more profitable, right? And it is acting as an incentive. So innovation, through granting of patents and copyrights, the innovation becomes more profitable, right? and therefore acts as an incentive. And therefore acts as an incentive. So these are some of the reasons why monopoly position has been created. So in the next class, we're going to talk about the profit maximization and the output choice for a monopolist, right? And we'll take the discussion further. Thank you, Vita.